So we want to move on and look, the challenge remains and the opportunity remains for us to understand really, again, it comes back to how well are we leveraging this particular mobile device in order to have an effective conversation with our target consumer. However we might identify them and however we might be able to get that right message to them at the right time. So we're very fortunate to close the afternoon today with a panel discussion that's dedicated to really digging into these questions of what is the business opportunity of mobile app advertising? Who's doing it well? Who could be doing a better job of it? And what can we all learn about how this could become a more effective tool within our arsenal? So I'm going to start by introducing our moderator, Barb Murrer. Barb is Senior Director for Insights and Analytics at Levi Strauss & Company. She's also on the ARF Board of Directors. And I will turn it over to Barb to kick things off.
We just have you guys come up.
And so joining Barb on today's panel, we have starting Hannu.
Just come on up.
Hannu Verkasalo, who's the CEO of Verto Analytics. We have Erica May. She is the Director of Global Mobile Engagement and Acquisition with EA. Marcus Pratt is VP of Insights and Technology at Mediasmith. And Jahan Damji is here at Facebook. He's a product manager in mobile monetization. So, Barb, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. I think we're going to have a whirlwind half an hour here with this great panel. So I'm just going to kick it off. Barb Murrer has mentioned I manage Insights at Levi Strauss. And what I'd like these folks to do is, you heard some intros, but I'd like to understand from each of you what this space means to you in your typical workday. So give some perspective to the audience here about where you're focusing.
Great. So let me get started here. So Hannu Verkasalo, Verto Analytics. We are a measurement data vendor. So we measure how people behave across the mobile devices and all other online devices. I think the biggest question for our clients today is to kind of understand who is the mobile consumer, not only being able to explain who plays games and who's using apps, but how are these folks like? Who's going to buy automobiles next month? Being able to figure out how to do media planning, how does mobile fit the bigger media mix against TV, radio, social, online, all of that. And there's also work to be done over there. The other key piece is, of course, the measurement of the campaign. What happens? It's easier again to work with gaming companies who see directly a download if they spend money on mobile in-app advertising. What about for you guys, or for J&J, or for Unilever? The measurement of the impact on mobile advertising in terms of brand recall, we are not yet there. So trying to figure out that piece as well. That's something we are working quite a bit on nowadays.
Okay, Erica.
Hello, I'm Erica. I manage mobile engagement and acquisition at EA. So that means any way you can talk to a customer in any of our apps. So push notes, mobile ads, cross promos between our games, email, you name it. To me, I think about acquisition, and I also think about retargeting. And it's just a part of a greater conversation that we have with our customers. So sometimes an ad is the first time I say hello to somebody, and EA gets to know them. And sometimes it's also, hey, nice to see you again, delivering a different type of message. So really thinking about that whole customer journey and how it all ties together is something that we really think about a lot at EA.
All right.
I'm Marcus. I'm with Mediasmith. We're an independent media agency out of San Francisco, and we have clients ranging from Salesforce on the B2B side, BJ's Restaurants, casual dining, and Pinger, who's here today in the kind of mobile development space, app only. So for us, when we look at mobile apps, they could be a channel for us to reach potential customers, but they're also sometimes an experience for those customers once they've already been engaged, have made a purchase, or working with our client. And at that point, it's an opportunity for conversion and additional messaging.
My name is Jahan Damji, work at Facebook, and I'm a product manager for our mobile app ads business. So all my time is dedicated to making sure that I can build the right products for these guys and people here and other mobile app developers, whether they're app only, web and app, or just trying to understand what they should do in app advertising.
Okay, great. Hannu, I'm going to turn to you for some perspective about the industry and the size of it and the spend in the advertising space here relative to some other areas that maybe are more traditional.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good open question, and basically my statement is that like one of the things we have to consider carefully is that what is mobile, what's not mobile. We have a panel in the US and many other countries where we follow the consumer. We follow the consumer across TV, computers, but all of the other devices as well, tablets, smartphones. And today in the US, for example, excluding print, TV, radio, they all have a sizable high reach among the adult population. If you just think about the online platforms, you know, there are laptop PCs, desktop PCs, smartphones, tablets, but there are a number of others. There are smart TVs, there are wearables, gaming consoles. So the multitude of device types that people are using, it's high. There are about 10 device types that have at least 1/10 of the adult population using the devices every month. So it's a big pool. And there are devices like smartphones and tablets that are typically considered as mobile. But again, tablets, based on our data, are in many ways competing for the prime time attention of the consumer in the evenings against TV, for example. So is that mobile or not? So the big question is like, what's mobile, what's not? But on the supply side, I mean, the point is that there are lots of devices people are using. Smartphones and tablets have exceeded the number of computers in the market in the so actively used devices to access the internet monthly. Mobile devices are, during a typical hour of the day, based on our data, they are reaching more people. Now it's 4:30, between 4 and 5 p.m. in the US, there are about 3 times more people using mobiles than PCs. But the frequency is high. Time spent on average per session, it's lower. So today we see PC and mobile devices, smartphones and tablets being equal in terms of time spent. But there's certainly more momentum on mobile devices to catch more of that time spent in the future. On the demand side, advertising, it's certainly growing quicker on the mobile side of things. What we have seen is that in the US, the revenues of mobile advertising exceeded the revenues of PC advertising this year. Across the top 10 economies in the world, the same is going to happen next year. And in-app advertising, it's going to triple in value over the next 3 years. So there's certainly momentum on that side of things, just to give some perspective on that.
So a lot of the spend getting to apps specifically is really, there's a lot of game spend there from an advertising side, obviously a lot of social activity there. And one of the questions that comes up is, how do you expect, panel, the brand players to get more involved in the mobile app space? And what would it take for that to happen? I think gaming's pretty, apparent why that's the case, but curious to hear from you guys about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that education is a lot of it. I mean, even on our console side of the business, it's scary to get attribution. I mean, people have staffed their teams to buy TV and mass media, and suddenly finding out that a majority of your money went to waste can be a scary thing, and it's something that we're currently going through right now. So I would say, technology, attribution, it's coming, and everyone kind of needs to get ready for it. But education is a big piece of that.
I'd also add, I mean, when we talk about mobile app install advertising, that's been a big part of the market, and that makes a lot of sense for some businesses where they have an app and there's value to the consumer for that app and there's value to the business for that app. But we don't recommend that our clients get into mobile app advertising or install advertising, especially without a really strong consumer use case and a business use case. Get the app out there, make sure that it has value. And I think that's part of the issue that we're seeing is some of the major brands, the traditional CPGs, they don't have a lot of business having an app. I think we heard about Brisk doing a great job getting an app in the hands of consumers by partnering with Star Wars. But by and large, I'm not going to download an iced tea app. I use Degree deodorant, I love it, but I'm not going to download the Unilever app, right? So I think part of it is what makes sense from a business standpoint. And Unilever now bought Dollar Shave Club, so they've got an app and they've got a reason to try and put that in people's hands. But it really starts with the consumer experience.
So what do you think on the Brisk example was interesting to me. I think about okay, should Levi's do an app and we can get people running out to buy jeans so they can go play a game? But there was a lot of sales generated from that, but what about from a brand building standpoint in the long run?
It's an interesting question. I think if they hit $1 billion in value that year, obviously it was a success. I wasn't there, I wasn't involved. I think this was a little while ago, so the cost of getting all those installs was probably lower. Things like that are going to have a higher and higher cost as we move into 2017. I think you guys are probably seeing it costs more to get an app on deck, and it costs more to get people to come back and keep using it. So to do that same type of experience and get that Star Wars experience into someone's hands, you're going to have to pay more and more money for that, and there better be long-term lasting value to the business.
I think one of the things is the fact that, okay, if you are EA, you want people to play games, it's more straightforward for you to think about the audience, the target audience, and get them to download the game and start using the game and spending some money on the game. If you think about you guys, it's more about, I guess, the overall media mix. Many of the things in mobile, in terms of data, measurement data, and all of that has been in isolation, so you can't easily figure out if I spend $500,000 here on mobile, does that add into my audience against the TV advertising? Is it the same people I reach, but I get a different frequency, combination across the day in life? Things like that, and being able to have that available, would it make it easier for brands to advertise on mobile? We are not yet there with all of the products.
Because I think for a lot of us on the advertiser side, it's the trade-off, because we look at a portfolio of different tools that we can use. There's a big pie with lots of pieces, be it on the mobile side, TV, print we do events, et cetera. And a lot of it for us is on the ROI. So we're tracking that, we're measuring that, there's new things that come up that we might test. So in this space, from a mobile app standpoint, what do you feel are some of the challenges on reading the ROI, or where do you feel like it's pretty clear and apparent to read the ROI, maybe?
Yeah, and I think just to jump on a little bit on that previous question, a lot of times when we talk to clients, they always are thinking about, how do I enter the app space? And what we actually ask them instead is, what are you trying to accomplish by building an app? Because that's the first question a lot of people need to ask themselves. Because if they're trying to drive just sales, and you're a big brand company, that may not be the best fit for you. So I think we've seen a lot of different unique examples. We've seen Target, for example, which could have just replicated their store, but instead they've been really successful with a companion app, a coupon app. So you're in the store and you actually shop with this app called Cartwheel, and it helps them increase incremental sales. We've also seen companies like Louis Vuitton. They could have gone and built an app that sold purses and, I think they sell shoes maybe, so purses and shoes, I hope. Some people might know that better than me, but they could sell shoes. But instead what they did is they went out and they built this really innovative app, which is a city tour app. Louis Vuitton's a luxury brand. They want to be associated with luxurious things. You download that app and you see a lot of cool places around the world that you could go to and visit. They're not pushing their products directly, but they're building brand through that app. They're trying to figure out, is there a way I can engage with my customer, build an experience with my customer, and then associate my brand with that experience, whether that means directly driving sales or not. So just to add on to that first question you had.
That's a great point, but talking about the ROI a little bit more, I think US is US, and we can talk about the fact that Facebook split out Facebook Messenger and people use lots of apps. If you take a look at China, people are just using like WeChat, QQ, couple of apps, and that's it. What we are saying is that there's more in-app stuff, so people are doing in a handful of apps more things and being able to understand better that experience, and if that's going to happen in the US. I mean, even in the US, there are about 71 apps that are in your smartphones today. You use out of those 71 apps about 28 per month, about 16 per week, and only 6 per day. So there's a limitation in terms of how much apps people, what people want to have in the device and they can use in terms of their day life. So the point I think next will be that how can we measure, and what's the hope from Pratt advertising to help in that ecosystem. I mean, there are only that many apps that people can download, so the bubble over there might be something we have to go beyond, and that brand advertising will help to kind of monetize on more in-app stuff.
So what do you think some of the characteristics would be of what an engaging app would be for a brand that makes sense for it? Marcus, what about you?
Sure. So I think it depends a lot on the brand, and there is a question: is there a commerce experience there? Like in the case of Target, then that makes sense, and we're seeing, for the majority of our clients that sell something, they still see lower conversion rate on mobile, but that's going to start to change, and with people getting used to using mobile wallets more often and purchasing habits just changing, I think we're going to see mobile is a really good place to implement a purchase, and that could actually be an in-store purchase. Hannu, you mentioned, WeChat. QR codes are huge in China because of WeChat, and people can snap a QR code and purchase something. Here, we think they're a joke, right? I'm like, if I see a billboard with a QR code, I say, why in the world? But over there, you could, take a picture of anything and just buy it instantly. I think there's huge potential for commerce where people are selling something. For engagement and kind of brand building, I think it's a little bit more difficult, and you might want to consider partnering with somebody who already has that install base or that direct relationship with the consumer.
Anybody else? On that, any characteristics that you feel will be important for mobile apps, make them successful?
There are some, like Marcus was talking about payments. There are a few things that I guess we all can feel that are unique to mobile. It's personal. You don't share your smartphones with your friends or even family members. It's in the context of people doing decisions. It follows, the mobile device follows you everywhere. It can be a payment channel. You can easily swipe and do a payment within the game. That's how EA and many other gaming companies are successfully making lots of money. But I guess we have just scratched the surface in terms of being able to capitalize on those features. Yes, you can reach a certain demographic group with your mobile advertising, but are you able to pinpoint those folks who went to the musical last week and get the same people to be exposed on your ad today? We are not yet there today. Contextual stuff, people are going to pick up the phone 5 p.m. Are you going to serve them with an ad regarding a restaurant or a musical based on the context of the user at that moment? Being able to read the calendars or past behaviors. Again, we are not yet there with the sophistication. And payments, like I'm using Google Maps to find the closest Starbucks. If I could already swipe over there, do the payment, and just go to Starbucks to pick up the double espresso, that would be cool, but can't do it today. So I think we have done certain interesting things, and there's certain capabilities we are already able to capitalize on, but certain features are still underutilized in mobile. So there's lots of innovation still to become, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think one interesting thing that people always look at, and I think gaming really was cutting edge here, and I'm sure Erica will jump in after this and talk about it, but retention is really important in apps. Everyone knows that retention is difficult in the app business. If you go outside gaming, retention tends to be even worse. So whenever you're building an app, you always have to think, what's the use case, and how am I going to get this person to come back to that app? It could be, if you're commerce, coupons, right? If you're gaming, she'll probably know inside out, but there's a lot of viral mechanics you could use to surprise and delight people. If it's experiences you're selling or something else you're selling, it's basically getting people to come back because they want what's next. Say you're BMW and you're doing that BMW Films promo. It's releasing new BMW films every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So you want to think, what's that mechanic that's going to get people back into your app and show them that there's actually value when they come back to that app.
Yeah, I think users expect customized experiences now, so they are willing to share that data if you tell them how you're going to use it to make their experience better. So it can be challenging. For us, it's scaling apps worldwide, making sure that we have events that are culturally relevant in every location around the world. It's customizing the storefront, making sure that we're also cognizant of every location, and also what price points users want to see. So I think, retention has become a difficult thing because it's hard to customize all of those. And also it's tough. If you're going to run an ad, you need to get into the app and have a similar experience. You need to have cohesiveness, and it can be really challenging to target so many different people with so many different creatives and then land in an app and have that same experience, which is why, 50% of people bounce as soon as you get them in your app.
So ARF, in the work that they've done in the past year, would talk about different roles for different types of vehicles. So print has a different neuro impact, for example, than TV does. And then as you go to mobile apps, how should we think about what the role of that is if you are a brand player and you want to advertise in mobile apps? What do you think that does for the consumer? Because I'm hearing it's a purchase vehicle on one hand, and maybe it's an education vehicle or awareness vehicle, and then the Louis Vuitton example is experience. Do you feel like, hey, it's any of these things, or what do you think from a brand building standpoint?
I think there should definitely be a focus on engagement. If you think about the fact that somebody's got this device in their hand, they're ready, they're always touching it. It's certainly not a passive experience from that standpoint. So there are a lot of different ways that you can take that, from delivering an experience or asking somebody to buy something or reopen a game and see some new features there. But in general, it doesn't have to be direct response, but it should be engagement focused compared to the lean back vehicles that we see, like print and television and audio. And certainly you can have elements of that. Sight, sound, and motion can be in your mobile experience, but there's such a great opportunity to get somebody to do something, even if it's just a single tap.
Okay.
We think about, so mobile in the context of people, purchasing something. Is it jeans or auto cars or, consumer electronics? I think how we think about that case is it's like there's the long-term purchase funnel, like people buying cars. That's a more long-term purchase funnel. While there are spontaneous things like people figuring out where to go for dinner next. It's more spontaneous at the context kind of a purchase decision. I think how we should think about the mobile, it's very different, viewpoints in these two examples. I think in the latter, it's more like, can people easily find and discover what he wants to do next? Can the consumer do a purchase right away, get to the destination? If I want to play games, can I easily find the right game for me and start enjoying that? That's more like the spontaneous kind of things. And the use case over there. The first use case, it's more about the long-term funnel. And over there, mobile might be just one of the things. You might look for the smart TV on your mobile. You might want to do some price conversions, but you might still go to eBay on your computer to buy the TV set. So the question over there is like, what's the role of mobile over there in the purchase funnel? Are people getting started with mobile, but they end up with the computers? For you guys, is that going to bring incremental lift for your exposure in the market? And so we should think about how to measure the impact of mobile at least in two different ways in these examples.
How about you guys?
Yeah, and again, I think it just really depends as a brand, right? Because you want to figure out what your objective is. Like the reason I brought up Cartwheel and Louis Vuitton is that they took different approaches. Cartwheel has the luxury of having, or Target has the luxury of having a huge brick and mortar presence, but they could have easily just built another online sales app, which they also have as well, but Cartwheel is the more popular one. So again, I think it just really depends on what your brand objective is. If you have distribution channels and maybe don't sell direct to customers, then maybe like an experience app is helpful, because then you're actually building awareness of your product and associating it with certain things that you want to associate it with. If you do have a channel sell directly to customers, then it might make sense for either a companion app or a coupon app or something like that. So brand it's such a broad term, and I think it just really depends on what is your way to reach the consumer today? Do you have direct channel sales? Do you not? And then also, what do you want to accomplish with that app? You want it as a companion app? You want it as I think some of you guys mentioned, bottom funnel app, where you actually convert to sales? Or do you want something else which is more association and kind of awareness?
Yeah, in a past life, I launched the REI shopping app, and I think it was a long education. Part of our audience we saw went to the mobile app to research before they went in store to purchase. But then there was just this giant population of users who actually would go into the store, do all their research, because you have that personalized experience there and a wealth of knowledge, and then actually go home and buy big items. And I think that was a shock to us. And I think data just drives how you customize your app. At the end of the day, you're getting out your app when you're waiting in line, or you need a break, or you're at home and you have a few seconds. So I think as a brand, you want to think, what am I going to provide to my customer in that time that adds value and helps them relax and helps their experience and helps them feel closer to me?
I think all of us, we're still trying to find out, is mobile competing for the time? I mean, is TV competing with mobile? Is it complementary? People are watching ESPN, but using mobile, you will amplify your message as an advertiser or brand. Or
as
is
we
it in,
saw today
exactly, yeah.
as well.
Or is it in sequence? People get started with mobile, they move to computers to buy stuff, or is it that, I see an ESPN ad here, and then I take my mobile, I turn the attention on mobile. So, all of those will be valid as use cases, as consumer cases, but what works where and how, those are the things to understand.
So how about what's the biggest challenge that you're facing in your work at this point in this space? Let's start down at the end.
Yeah, so I think there's two challenges. One for advertisers that generally have an app and have an app strategy, and then ones that don't have an app yet and they're exploring the app strategy. So for the ones that have apps, I think the biggest challenge we see across advertisers is that as the install market continues to get saturated, they're not yet thinking truly around how do I continue to remarket to my customer and re-engage in my app in paid manner. So there's email marketing, there's push notifications, there's things you can do with your app. But one big blind spot we see right now for a lot of advertisers is they're not thinking hard around how do I actually continue to use paid advertising to unlock continuous usage of my app or continuous transactions of my app. On the second side of the world, the ones that are kind of just entering the app space, I think a big question we get is how do I think around spending and balancing my spend on web or mobile web versus app? How do I think about my conversion rates between the two? There's always trade-offs between, I can send someone to the website and they'll convert much easier, or I can send them to the app store and they'll have to download the app, which adds friction that might lower conversions. But what's the trade-off between short-term and long-term? Once you have an app user, they could be more valuable because they become almost, you have real estate on their phone, they can continuously engage with your app. So that second part is how do I balance those budgets between web and mobile apps?
I totally agree with that second part in terms of planning and trying to understand where to invest. We see for anybody that's spending a decent amount of money in trying to get app downloads, they hit a point of decreasing returns with any publisher, and that's why you see television ads and Clash of Clans advertising on the side of a train. But it can be difficult on an individual advertiser basis to figure out what that best media mix is for something like an install. And we've got decades of research to figure out the right weight to drive somebody to store to buy a consumer packaged good, but we don't necessarily have the same tools and the same robust amount of data for planning to do kind of install marketing. The other challenge that I really see is in attribution and trying to close the loop with that data set. For anybody that has a business in their app, it's relatively straightforward. But we've heard from our friends at Oracle and Newstar today, and the wealth of data that they have is helping to close that loop to say if we have a mobile experience and we touch this person there, how does that contribute to some other activity? But I think a lot of that data is out there and it's still disparate, so we need to do more work to bring that together. And I would encourage advertisers to try to measure what matters, stop measuring clicks, and get the infrastructure in place to be able to measure your business results before you invest heavily in any type of advertising.
I would say for me, it's getting granular with ROI. So specifically creative, which a lot of people have talked about today. It baffles my mind that I still have to call somebody on the phone in many cases to say hey, what's my ad doing today? Or emailing people my ad formats. It becomes increasingly challenging when there's so many local ad networks popping up with no APIs. And there's really no great creative solution to look at how everything is performing at one time. So when you're running hundreds of ads, it becomes really challenging to make sure you're hitting everybody at the right time and investing in the right places. And also on that, marrying up, giving companies a way to marry up their production costs with scale and volume and revenue would be something, that I would love to see somebody tackle.
Hannu, how about on the measurement side?
Yeah, I think we have spent many years and lots of time in building the panel, which is interesting in terms of being able to follow second by second how people simultaneously or separately spend time on TV or online or mobile apps and all of that, which is great. We do lots of interesting work with consumer insights, competitive intelligence. At the moment, the biggest challenge for us is to find and to be able to build the right tools and the right frameworks to be able to get the data into the daily workflows of our clients, being able to influence how they do media mix modeling, media planning, media buying, execution. So getting from that data set and consumer insights to more actionable ways to use the data. That's the biggest challenge that we face at the moment. It's time, and it's also feedback from the market we need to use for that, but that's where we're spending the time today.
Okay. What are some of the things you think are going to change the most in the next couple of years?
I can go first because I think about this a lot. But buying deeper into the funnel, I mean, it is crazy that people still think about the number of installs they're getting or hitting a certain CPI for their CFO, when in reality, like, who cares how much you're paying for a user if they're bringing that value back? So an example would be in one of our games, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. We are going deeper into the funnel. One place is guild leaders, uploading those to places like Facebook, creating audiences, and going for a lower volume of users while driving more revenue. And I think we'll see a switch in mobile measurement platforms and how we buy users to buy against other metrics besides just that initial install.
I mean, echoing on that, less buying users and more re-engaging users. So saying at a certain point you'll reach everybody that might play an EA game, and there's only going to be a handful of folks out there. So how can we go and get them to get the next thing? Or how can we get that person who deleted our app to reinstall it? I think there's going to be a lot more sophistication around that, and using paid media as a re-engagement strategy and saying, is it worth it to put in $1 against this person who we haven't seen for a month or 6 months or whatever it is, and see if we can get them to take a desired action on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with those two things. You said remarketing, and you said, I think, high-quality users. I think the third thing, which is probably more relevant for cross-platform companies, is that hopefully we'll see an environment where the decision of whether you're being sent to a medium, whether that medium is a mobile app, or that medium is a website, or that medium is something else. Hopefully we'll see kind of a convergence there where platforms or advertisers that are, or platforms that are doing advertising for you are able to figure out what's the best path to conversion, whether it is on an app, whether it's on mobile, web, whether it's on desktop, whatever it is, and be able to send those users to those places.
Well, from our point of view, I think what has been already changing a lot has been how people engage with content and how people are spending time on mobile. It's been incremental to anything people have done in the past. What hasn't changed so much is like how people spend money. So going back to that point of like how people could use mobile as the point of purchase, the payment channel. There's lots of room to innovate and lots of room for people not to be able to only expose to the campaign, but be able to go to the store and swipe and do the payments. So lots of room for innovation over there. The biggest thing will be that, is it going to be the Facebooks of the world or Googles of the world? Is it going to be the credit card companies? Is it going to be carriers with Verizon, AT&T active? So who's going to take the lead in some of those more integrated user experiences in the future? So that's going to be a big battle. There's room for collaboration, of course, as well, but we'll see what's going to happen.
Okay. All right. Do we want to take any questions, ARF folks?
Yeah.
If there are any questions, that is. Okay.
Overall, in a mobile experience, how much time is spent on in-app, in a mobile web, as you break down the time in the mobile?
Yeah, the time breakdown. We nowadays see that about 9 out of 10 minutes on mobile is spent on apps. So people go to sites, but if you compare to PC, it's a big difference. So, so that's of course, it's fair to say that apps are driving the engagement, or apps driving the purchase conversions and payments in the future. That's the bigger question, I think.
I think we have one question here in the front, Mark.
So, do we see it changing with Google coming with these moving away from an app-based world with like instant apps with Google Play and all that stuff? So, how, as a company, would we want to focus on going into an app-based kind of advertising, or do we see that changing, and because we are just starting there, we would want to prepare for it?
Sure. So I think if you're considering building an app, I would think long and hard about that and what the long-term user benefit is and what the business benefit looks like. If you can achieve your objective without an app, that's going to be easier, it's going to be cheaper, it's going to be faster, and you're probably going to have less friction for that user. But long term, if there is value to having that app, and there are things that you can only do in an app environment now, so that's changing. But Apple Pay is great, right? Apple Pay is coming to Safari. We're going to be able to do that, so you can shop in more of an app-like experience in your browser. But right now, there is a benefit to doing that shopping without me needing to punch in my credit card info, and I think some people have really capitalized on that.
And, we started like, what's mobile? That's a good question. But what's an app? That's another question. Like, I mean, you pick up an app on your mobile smartphone. Like, that's clear. When you talk to your Amazon Echo personal assistant, which is hardware, no screens, is that an app, the cloud-based personal assistant? I mean, that's a way for you to engage with the internet as well, get recommendations for you to do purchase decisions. So I think we shouldn't just think about mobile PC app sites, but it's a more complicated world we see today, and increasingly so in the future.
Okay.
Good.
All right, thank
Thank
you
you,
to the
everybody.
panelists.